MVP right now, I think, is a fascinating race insofar as I do think that there is one clear, obvious pick right now for who the MVP of the NBA is in 2021-2022 in the first half of the season. I also think that it is pretty wide open in terms of the way that it could go toward the end of the season. How do you feel about MVP and how it's shaking out early on this year?
I think it's plausible we're going to disagree because I don't think there is one clear and obvious choice. I mean, should I reveal who I put number one? How are we doing this?
Yeah, let's start with your ballots on all of this.
All right.
So
should I just read off my top five?
Go 5-1, yeah.
All right. Number 5, I had Demar Derozan.
Yep, that's also who I have at 5.
Just, the dude's been unreal. And you know, with DeMar, I am all for the analytical concept that clutch time performance past clutch time performance does not indicate how somebody will perform in future clutch time. Normally, yes, over a larger sample size, somebody will regress not to the mean, but to wherever their personal mean is. If you're a great player, you'll end up playing great in clutch time. And if you're not a great player, you'll end up playing not great in clutch time. That being said, when I put together my awards ballot, I'm not voting on what would happen if we simulated out this season 100 times. Yes. I'm just voting on what actually happened in real life. And undeniably, how you actually perform in clutch time, those shots have more value. Have you looked at DeMar DeRozan's clutch time numbers? They're
I'm sure you have given to me.
Absolute insanity. Like, you can look at the highlights, which is the game-winning shots and the buzzer beaters and all that, and they're ridiculous. How many three-pointers? Clutch time, by the way, is defined as within 5 points with five or fewer minutes left in the game. How many three-pointers do you think DeMar DeRozan has missed in clutch time this year?
Oh, I would guess like 1.
0.
Something like that. Yeah.
0. He is averaging 43 points per 36 minutes. He is shooting 58% from the field, 100% from 3, and 88% from the line. Yeah. The dude has been unfreaking believable and deserves all the praise that he's been getting.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you picked DeMar. I was worried that I was going to be out on an island with DeMar until I actually looked at the betting odds right now. I think DeMar is 5th or 6th right now with the betting odds. So like, I'm glad that people are recognizing this. The only thing that gave me pause was having to sit there for a second and go, okay, is DeMar DeRozan the best player on the Bulls? Like when teams sit down and scout Chicago night in, night out, are they most worried about DeMar or are they most worried about Zach? Right? I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, I think different teams will have different mileage on that either way. But this is the number 1 team in the East. And even with that, I think DeMar has been the best player on the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference as of the time we're recording this, which is on Thursday in the United States at 4 o'clock, or what is it, 4 o'clock your time? 3 o'clock? Something like that? 3:15. So, yeah, I have no problem with DeMar being there. He's averaging 27 points and 5 rebounds and 4 assists, something like that.
Yeah, and he's a good passer. And he's
passer.
So important for what they do offensively. Like, you know, his ability, whether you want to say whether he or Levine is better, and Levine's having a very good season. But
totally.
Part of the reason why I think Levine has been as good as he's been is because DeMar is able to just take over so many of those facilitating duties from him. Like Zach can play off the ball more now. He can run around screens. I think a lot of people don't realize how great Levine is off the ball. Like, he is an incredible shooter. He's incredible when he's curving around screens. He has really good off-ball intuition. Him being off the ball more and DeMar being so much better of a passer than he was 5 years ago. I mean, he really became a really, really good and refined and aware passer in San Antonio. I think they're a great combination together. And I'm cool with throwing Levine on. I didn't have Levine on my All-NBA that we did, but he was right there in contention, and I have no problem if somebody wants to throw him on there. I think he's been great this year too.
Okay, give me number 4.
Number 4, I had Giannis.
Okay, yeah.
The top 4.
I think we probably Yeah, I think we probably flip 3 and 4 would be my bet.
Yeah.
So
Number 4, I had
give me
Giannis.
your pitch on Giannis. I had Giannis at 3.
Yeah, I mean, I had. I mean, let's just talk about him in combination to 3, or in relation to 3, I should say, which is I had Jokic number 3.
Yeah, right. I had Jokic at 4. So yeah. we're just flipping the 2.
To me, it was just the tiebreaker was just kind of Denver absolutely annihilates teams when Jokic is on the floor. Just destroys when Jokic is on the floor. He has the most extreme on-off numbers in the league. And if you look at any of the advanced numbers, you want to look at like Raptor WAR, you want to look at box score plus minus, any of that stuff, win shares, it's like Jokic and Gobert are the guys who just destroy in those categories. And a lot of those numbers can be a little biased towards bigs. So I always take them with a little bit of extra flavor. But I mean, Jokic is just annihilating in those numbers. And that made him put me ahead of Giannis, or that made me put him ahead of Giannis. But yeah, Giannis has been what a defensive season he's had. Like he's been remarkable.
That was ultimately the tiebreaker for me as to why I went Giannis over Jokic. He has been absolutely incredible defensively. This is a team that for most of the season has not had Brook Lopez. I think he may have played a couple games, right? But for 90% of the season, it feels like they have not had Brook Lopez in the lineup. They've been doing it with
Brook played literally one game.
Yeah, I was going to say they have made it happen with these makeshift rosters, like with DeMarcus Cousins at center, and they're still sitting here at number 9 in defensive efficiency, despite the fact that like Drew Holiday has missed a lot of time, and like you kind of look at the guys up and down the roster, like Grayson Allen has played. I believe the 3rd most minutes on this team. Do you know who's played the most minutes on the Milwaukee Bucks so far, by the way?
Oh, geez. Is it going to be like Pat Connaughton?
It's Pat Connaughton. Pat Connaughton has played the most minutes on the Milwaukee Bucks so far. So we've got Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis, and George Hill, and Jordan Nwora, and Rodney Hood. That is 6 of your top 9 players. I'm going to be honest. I don't think there's a good defender in that group. Like Pat Connaughton, I think gets by defensively and is like, okay, he's solid within scheme, but like there's not a plus defender in that group. Drew Holiday has missed like quite a bit of time. I guess he missed maybe like 5 or 6 games. Looking at the minute totals now, he actually hasn't missed nearly as much as what I thought he had. But Chris Middleton has missed a little bit of time here and there. The fact that Giannis has held this defense together by a string is absolutely bonkers to me. His rotational ability, his ability to play more center, his ability to be like the primary rim protector for a team that desperately needs it at times. He's just been unbelievable defensively. And that's, by the way, while averaging 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, I think this is probably his best passing year that I've seen. He seems a lot more comfortable just making plays and being able to read what defenses are giving him as a passer. He's still not really shooting threes or anything, but he looks more comfortable to take the shots that are available to him in the mid-range. I think that, again, this is, if not the best Giannis we've seen, it's right on par with his 2 MVP years at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with any of that. Look, I'm not going to make any of these points by denigrating any of the guys on this list.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the 5th best MVP season in the NBA, it's because I think you're really freaking good.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing that I would add,
Jokic has been unbelievable.
The other thing I would add, I mean, you mentioned Giannis having an unbelievable season. I agree with all of that. You look at the rim protection numbers, like opponents are shooting 48% on layups and dunks when Giannis is the closest defender to them right now. That's the 2nd best figure amongst big men in the entire league, behind only Rudy Gobert. And when they lose Brook Lopez, that's what Brook Lopez's value is defensively. He is the guy who's going to contest dunks and layups. And when they lose Brook Lopez, and you can have Giannis jump in, or wing, basically. I don't know if he's a wing. He's a big. He's a Giannis. When you have him to jump in on that, it's ridiculous. There's not a comparable to that.
Well, think about too, I mean, it's such a drastically different role in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that like, oh, like he's doing something entirely different. He's being like the big defender in the pick and roll constantly now. He's not necessarily that. Like he is, teams aren't going, hey, let's have Giannis's guy come up and screen because we think that we can get a mismatch on Giannis, or we think he's worse in drop than Bobby Portis, right? But I think that he's making a more concerted effort to be available around the rim as necessary, and then allowing himself that length to recover without Brook Lopez around. And it's making Milwaukee still have a very high level defense, even in the absence of one of the best rim protectors in the NBA.
Yeah. All that said, Jokic is also having the best defensive season of his career. He's got a rep for not being a defender. I know that's the general rep on him. It's not true.
Yep.
He's it's not Giannis. I mean, Giannis is a defensive player of the year caliber guy. Jokic is a legitimately good defender. He's a legitimately good rim protector. He's a legitimately good team defender. All that stuff is, I mean, he's good. He's good. Yeah. Had a game-saving block the other night. He is really good. Should we move on to
let's move on to one, because I think that this debate is very interesting. Because look, let's be clear. It's our number one and number two are going to be Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant in some order, right? So I will be very interested, given the fact that you said this is a little bit closer. I think that the way that the MVP race breaks down right now is, I think 1 and 2 are in a very slight tier ahead. I think 3 and 4 are in their own tier, kind of, below those two. And then I think there's like a group from 5 to, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 that you could realistically vote for in that 5th spot. Chris Paul was one that I considered. Like the fact that Chris Paul, it was funny. I was talking to Seth Partnow on the podcast last week. Like Chris Paul got Bismack Biyombo like double-digit points off the street, last week twice in a row, and it's like, what are we doing here? Chris Paul is like freaking unbelievable. I considered Jimmy Butler for keeping the Miami Heat afloat, even though I know that he's missed quite a bit of time. I consider Paul George, even though he is not shot as well as what we've seen Paul George shoot in the past. It's been very impressive to me that he's kept Los Angeles afloat. Luka Doncic did not play exceedingly well to start the season. He's been better lately. I consider Ja Morant in this tier as well. Is there anyone else you considered before we move on to 1 and 2?
I had Rudy Gobert as an honorable mention.
Yeah, Rudy's a good one too.
Yeah. That's another one I'd add. The other guys you mentioned as well.
Okay, let's go 1 and 2 now.
Kevin Durant's my MVP.
Okay, I don't agree. I have Steph, and I think that it should clearly be Steph. But I'm very interested to hear, because I think it's an interesting argument on a number of levels. Like, if you ask me to say who I think the best basketball player on planet Earth is, I think I would say Kevin Durant. Like, just being totally transparent and honest, I think I would. If we're talking about who I think has been the most valuable player in the MVP so far, it's hard for me to go past Stephen Curry, given the fact that this Golden State Warriors team is the best team in the league. He has been absolutely unbelievable. He's been the critical piece as to why they run as efficiently as they do, along with Draymond Green, who will also get some love in the next category we're going to talk about. I think that it's totally reasonable to pick Kevin Durant on some level. I would have Steph, but let's hear from Fred why he has Kevin Durant.
Superior efficiency this season. He's the best player in the league who is, and other than Steph, maybe the best shooter in the league, who is shooting the lights out by his standards and playing the lights out by his standards. The Nets have had injuries. They've had Joe Harris out. They've had all the Kyrie stuff. Harden has not looked like the James Harden that we know. The efficiency for Harden is way down. He's not getting to the free throw line like he did. There have been so many moments where Durant has just had to flat out carry that team, and he's carried them right now to the second best record in the league. He's shooting 57% on long twos. This is obscene what he's been doing this year. And you know what? I think he's been wonderful defensively. The Nets have really surprised defensively, and I don't think they're going to finish the year where they are right now.
Yeah, they're a top 10 defense right now.
Yeah, and the numbers say they might be due for some regression there to be able to fall back. That said, Durant has been so good as a weak side defender. He's been so good as a helper. He's just been a tremendous facilitator and cog. Steph he's incredible. I have no problem with the Steph pick. He's having an unbelievable year, but like the true shooting, for example, it's not where you normally see. It's under 60%, which isn't bad. Like 50, he's a 59 right now, which is certainly not bad. It's good. And league average true shooting percentage is down this year from where it was in years past. But if we're just talking league MVP level, like that's actually not quite where you expect a Steph number to be. Like during his great years, like he's in the mid 60s. And so I have no problem with the Steph pick. Everything the Warriors are doing is because of that guy. Period. That is it. But I think you could say the same thing about Brooklyn with KD. And I think he's the superior player, having just by a hair of the superior year.
Yeah, you've sold me that this is closer than what I thought. Whenever I like put together my ballot a little bit, like my immediate response was, it's going to look silly to have Steph Curry not at number one, given that Golden State has been the best team in the league, given that Golden State has been, I mean, like from a narrative perspective, like they've been the story of the league. And like, I don't really consider narrative whenever I pick my personal ballot, but like in terms of like the perception of what that would be, like it's hard for me to go past just looking at everything Steph does for the Warriors. I mean, he makes that situation work. Like with Steph, it's like more than numbers. Like with Kevin, I don't want to say he doesn't contribute beyond the numbers, because like you said, he's been really good defensively this year. He's been really good in a number of facets that don't always necessarily show up on the box score. But I think you can get a lot of what Kevin Durant does from the box score at the end of the day, because he's just the best scorer in the NBA. He's like the most efficient, like deadly assassin scorer, like arguably maybe in league history outside of Steph, right? And he's having a better season than Steph is this year. So with Steph, so much of what he does is like opening shit up for other players. Like he sprints off of screens. He screens constantly. Their offense runs in part, and why someone like Jordan Poole can average 18 points and be as effective as he is. Because again, like I mentioned on the last week's show, like I haven't really loved the minutes I've seen from Jordan Poole whenever he has to like run the second unit for the Warriors. I think he's much more effective playing as like that off-ball scoring threat who attack closeouts and drives and is able to play that way. The way Steph opens up the floor for Jordan Poole is unbelievable whenever he's on the court. The way that Steph opens up the court for guys like Otto Porter to step up in a big way, guys like Gary Payton Jr., like unless you have Stephen Curry, it's often hard to get someone like Gary Payton Jr. on the court because of his lack of offensive ability and shooting. And Gary Payton Jr. has been one of the most valuable defensive players per minute this year. I couldn't quite get him on an all defense ballot because he just hasn't played like
he's only playing 17 minutes a game.
But
no, I covered him in Washington. Like he gets into ball handlers. He's always been like this. He is outrageous defensively.
And like a lot of the reason that you can get him on the court is playing him next to Steph and like making it work that way. So I think that there are other factors in terms of the way that Steph makes Golden State run more efficiently from a team construct that can't really be judged in the box score. And oh, by the way, like he's averaging 27 points and 6 assists and set the fucking 3-point record this year. Like you see a lot of it in the box score, but like you watch the games and you're like, oh my God, like this guy is unlike anything I've ever seen play basketball. So I have Steph right now. I absolutely think that it's open in the second half of the year. Like if Kevin Durant continues on this trajectory, I will say like too, I would over the second half of this like midseason. So like the second quarter of the season, right? I think KD has been better than Steph. Like I would say like he has caught up a little bit from the Warriors like crazy start and everything. So yeah, you've told me that this is a legit race even right now, let alone like going forward into the future, which I always thought.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that I'm in the minority on this one. When Tim Bontemps over at ESPN does the straw poll for MVP voting and texts 100 media members and asks what our ballots are. I sent in KD to him. This was a few weeks ago. I sent in KD to him, and I had Steph second, and I figured I'd be in the minority and that Steph would be first. And I was only one of 2 KD voters of the 100, which I was surprised it was that small. It was before KD went on this little run recently. I think there would probably be more than 2 now.
But that's what I was going to say.
But yeah, I recognize him in the minority, but I feel good about it. Look, I don't think Steph's a bad choice. I have no problem with him being up there. He's spectacular, and he's been spectacular this year. And everything that you said is true. Like everything that the Warriors are able to do is because of his, not just his shooting, but his movement and the way that 5 guys have to be locked in on him. But I mean, I think Brooklyn, you could say very similar stuff. The difference is that KD just isn't doing it in as flashy of a way. He's just so much more like methodical, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a metronome of efficient basketball. Like it's pretty wild.